A young couple named Will and Eva decide to subject themselves to a strict set of safety protocols after a comet released ashes that caused the spread of a mysterious disease across the world. The stress brought on by the isolation and preventive measures has not been easy for the couple. To top it off, draconian mandates from the government have left them no choice but to hide, not just from the authorities but also from their neighbors. On day 400 of the pandemic, Eva uses a test kit to find out if she is infected, but while they are waiting for the results, they hear the authorities knocking at the door. So Eva runs to her room and hides in a compartment under the bed. When Will answers the door, military personnel immediately enter their apartment to inspect the rooms. The sergeant looks at Will's ID and points out that he isn't mentioned in the apartment's lease records. Will tells them that the place belonged to his girlfriend, Carolyn Hartley, but she had already died from the virus. The sergeant takes another look at his records and asks Will about Eva Balsera, who was also listed on the lease. Will tells them that Eva went back to England to visit her parents when the pandemic hit, and he never heard from her again. As the sergeant looks around the apartment, he interrogates Will about all the plastic covering the furniture. Will tells them that it was part of the quarantine measures to keep his girlfriend safe. But it didn't work because she still succumbed to the disease. When the man inquires about the test kit, Will explains that he tested himself because he could be carrying the virus unknowingly. One of the soldiers calls the attention of the sergeant after finding a room with numerous pictures of women on the wall. Most of them hold papers with dates on them, but others have written dates directly on their skin. Will discloses that these were women that he once knew. The sergeant finally tells his men to move out of the apartment after finding nothing suspicious inside. On the way out, the sergeant tells Will that he's impressed that they've managed to survive the pandemic for so long. He assures Will there's no cause for worry because he has no intention of taking the infected individual living with him. When Will asks him what he meant, the sergeant points to the vial of the test kit on the kitchen table. The sergeant hints that he knows what the government does with the people they take with them. Before leaving the apartment, he tells Will to enjoy the last few moments he has with her. While Will broods over the result of the test, Eva tells him to start packing so they could leave. While they drive on the streets, an emergency announcement notifies the area's residents that a curfew is in effect. The announcer tells the residents to avoid exposure to the ash and report any sighting of females to the authorities. They stop by a store to buy some groceries, but Will tells Eva to stay close to him and keep quiet before getting out. Inside the store, most of the shelves are almost empty save for the feminine hygiene section where the products are offered free of charge. While Eva inspects a tampon, a store employee grabs her bonnet from behind, exposing her long hair. Will hears the commotion, so he points a gun at the startled employee, telling him to lie on the ground. After being convinced that no one else is in the store, Will leaves the man $40 to pay for the groceries and tells him to stay down until he finishes counting down from 500. Several weeks before the disease emerged, Eva had asked Will if they could go on a trip. Eva says she wants to go to a waterfall because she hasn't been to one in years. After breakfast, Eva and Will start reminiscing about their last road trip, but their serene moment is suddenly interrupted by a bird hitting their window. When they look outside, they notice the ashes falling from the sky. As they continue to stare outside the window, their roommate Carolyn enters the apartment and collapses on the floor. Back on the road, Will and Eva stop by the motel to stay the night. In the morning, Eva tapes a girdle around her chest to conceal her breasts. She notices some dust on the edge of the sink and rubs it on her cheeks to give her a scruffy look. She smiles as she continues applying the dust to her face. Later on, Will and Eva stop by a diner for food, but Will is worried that it might be too risky for both of them to go inside. However, Eva hints that she doesn't want to eat her last cooked meal on the road. Inside the diner, Will orders the food as Eva refrains from speaking to anyone. While they wait for their meal, a news anchor reveals that the embryo project was able to grow a fetus inside an artificial womb up to the second trimester. The authorities look at the promising experiment as a possible way to repopulate the Earth once they find a cure for the virus known as HNV-21. As other men arrive at the diner, the news reveals that the reward for reporting a living woman to the authorities has been increased from $1 million to $2 million. Will and Eva start to feel uneasy as the other men discuss the reward. When the waiter approaches their table, Will orders 2 pie slices to go and asks for the check. While preparing to leave, Will notices blood dripping from Eva's ear. Will tries to wipe off the blood from Eva's face, but he knocks over a coffee mug, pulling other people's attention. Will and Eva try to avoid the gaze of other customers as they rush out of the restaurant without paying for their food. When the waiter tries to come after them, a man offers to pay their bill as he watches them drive away. The man, named Arthur, tells his stepson, Casey, to finish his meal and prepare to leave. Will and Eva soon arrive at the entrance to a forest leading to a waterfall. Will tries to convey his concerns about Eva's health, but she urges him to enjoy their trip. In the past, when Will and Eva took Caroline to the hospital, Will noticed that the nurses and doctors seemed to be on edge. As more people arrived, he realized that all the patients were women. Will tells Eva that they'll have to leave, but Eva insists on staying behind to find out what's wrong with Caroline. Will only manages to convince her to leave when he tells her that only women are getting sick. On their way out of the hospital, Will decides to stop by a restricted area to grab 2 hazmat suits. When they get home, Eva receives a call from her dad, Peter, who advises them to quarantine. Peter gives them instructions on how to disinfect their apartment. First, Will covers the doors and furniture with plastic. Then they apply bleach on the floor and spray disinfectant into the air. Back in the present, while taking a break from their journey to the waterfall, Will sees Eva taking photos, so he asks her why she's still doing it when no one would see the images. Eva suggests that other women might still be out there, noting that she's not that special. In another flashback and on the second day of the ash fall, Will had incorporated the quarantine protocols into their morning routine. Will says they need to start boiling the water because the virus has entered the water supply. Will had installed UV lights all over the apartment because they can kill pathogens and germs within 2 feet. They will be eating canned food for a while, but Will assures Eva that the quarantine will be over soon. When Eva hears her phone buzzing, Will advises her not to take it out of the bag when she answers the call. On the news, they hear that thousands of women have died from HIV-21 and millions more are infected. At least a dozen males have been found with the virus, but none have exhibited any symptoms. By day 44, Eva has started to become weary from eating ravioli all the time. The couple tries to keep themselves physically close by caressing each other while wearing gloves. As the days go by, Will builds a compartment that they can place under the bed so Eva can hide in case of emergencies. By that time, the government has begun to hold women in captivity. The news shows that the women appear to be happy as the president pays them a visit, but articles on the internet claim that the government has been conducting horrific experiments on women. Since Eva is not allowed to go out, she settles for taking pictures by the window. Will, however, warns her that it's still not safe, so he asks her to give him the camera. Eva is slowly becoming more irritable during her isolation, as she feels constricted by the protocols and the smell of the Lysol all over the house. While browsing the internet, Eva comes across a chat room for women who managed to avoid getting infected. The group, called She Will Survive, had 131 participants when she joined. Meanwhile, Will is becoming more protective of Eva as more women die from the disease. As Eva searches for her phone, Will tells her that he has hidden it for fear that she might be sending critical information to strangers. Eva is shocked to learn that Will went through her phone without her knowledge. Eva confesses to the women in the SWS chat room that she's starting to feel helpless because of the quarantine protocols. On the other hand, Will is often displeased with Eva every time she fails to follow the preventive measures. Soon, they hear from the news that 10 million women have already died from HIV-21. The number of participants in the SWS chat room has been reduced to 89, with some members noticing that fewer people are logging on each day. Eva tells the women in the chat room not to lose hope because other survivors are still probably out there. She then points out that her mother is still safe in England. Will and Eva continue to argue about the quarantine rules as the disease continues to wreak havoc worldwide. Meanwhile, the number of participants in the SWS chat room has continued to dwindle. When Eva goes online, she finds that there are only 14 women in the group. Back in the forest, Will and Eva practice shooting a kin after setting up camp. Will misses the target, so he asks Eva to try it. Eva hits the kin on her first shot, so Will asks her to try again. Meanwhile, Arthur and Kasia find Will's car at the forest entrance, and Arthur punctures a tire on Will's vehicle before going after them. After shooting, Eva and Will relax in the tent and get intimate, but their lovemaking is soon cut off when Eva's body starts to tremble. On day 238 of the pandemic, Will decides to buy the gun. When he entered the store, the clerk told him that he was a little late because most of his merchandise had already been sold. The man offers Will a rifle and suggests that it will be suitable for hunting women because it's not lethal. Will says he only wants something he could use for self-defense. Will gets home carrying a handgun with him as he disinfects himself before entering the living room. Will also brings home a test kit and tells Eva that he wants to use it to find out if he's a carrier. Will says that he is also tired of the quarantine, and he is hoping that he'd be able to touch Eva again if he's clear. He rubs the swab into his mouth and puts the sample into the vial. They watch the vial for a while, waiting to see if it changes color. Soon, they see the vial turning indigo, which indicates that Will is infected. Will is distraught to learn that he's a carrier, but he tells Eva not to worry because she's still safe. Back in the woods, Eva gets out of the tent in the morning to take a walk while Will is still asleep. When Will wakes up, he calls for Eva, but when he gets out of the tent, Casey and Arthur greet him by pointing a rifle at him. Arthur tells him to get out of the tent and asks him where Eva is. He starts yelling, telling her not to come back to their camp. Eva hears his voice and sneaks back to their camp. Upon reaching the area, she sees Arthur tying Will to a tree. Arthur tells Casey to check the trail while he looks for Eva near the river. Arthur soon sees Eva running, so he chases after her. She manages to evade Arthur by hiding between two huge rocks. While Arthur looks for her, she suddenly palpitates. Fortunately, Arthur gives up and decides to wait for her at the camp. That night, Arthur asks Will how he managed to keep Eva safe for so long. Arthur tells him that he tried sealing and sterilizing their basement to keep his wife safe, but she died after a few weeks. Arthur assures Will that he's not a monster. He only wants to repopulate the earth so that his son can raise his own family someday. Will reminds Arthur that Eva is already sick to be of any use to him. Arthur tells him that they need to find her soon because her eggs only last around 6 hours after death. Will asks Arthur if he would have turned his wife over to the authorities. He says he wouldn't have, but his wife, Kathy, would have gladly turned herself in if it would help. When an alarm starts beeping, Arthur wakes up Casey and tells him that it's his turn to watch over Will. By day 374 of the pandemic, only Eva and another woman with the username Hope365 are online in the SWS chat room. Hope tells her that another survivor has been raided the previous night. Hope says that she went online to say goodbye to Eva because she has already started feeling the symptoms. Eva tells her that it could be anything, but she says that she has taken the test. Hope sends Eva a photo of herself holding a paper with the date March 23rd. Eva prints the image and sticks it to the wall in her room, where other pictures of the women from SWS are displayed. In the forest, Will wakes up at night and sees Eva walking toward them. Eva walks toward Casey without her clothes on as he stares at her in awe. When she gets close, she strokes Casey's face gently and suddenly hits him in the head with a rock, knocking him unconscious. Eva aunties Will, but as they prepare to leave, they hear Arthur calling out to Casey. As Will points the rifle toward the tent, Arthur shoots from the inside, causing Will to fire back. Will is hit in the leg, but he still manages to get away with Eva. Arthur remains in the tent as he cries out in pain, indicating that he has also been hit. On day 400, Ava receives a call from her dad, but Will tells her that they should contact him via a secure VPN instead of calling him back. Eva tells Will that maybe it was an emergency because Peter wasn't supposed to use the phone under normal circumstances. Will decides to dial the phone, but he tells Eva not to say anything. Peter, who has bruises on his face, answers the phone and tells Eva that he wants to know if she's okay. He informs Eva that his mother has been taken. He had thought that his wife would be safe because of her age, but people still took her. Peter cries as he begs Eva to say something. Unable to hold back her longing to communicate with her father, Eva calls out to Peter, saying she's okay. Will quickly takes away the phone, arguing that she cannot talk on an unsecured line. Eva begs him to give back the phone, but Will doesn't relent. He warns her that people will arrive in 15 minutes to take her away if she speaks on an unsecured line. Eva lashes out at Will, telling him that her home has become a prison because of his quarantine rules. Will assures Eva that they will survive the pandemic, but he tells her that she should realize that this would be her life now. Eva becomes even more frustrated, so she grabs the gun from the table. She then asks Will to leave while pointing the firearm at him. Will tries to reason with her, but she reiterates her demand, so he walks out of the apartment. On his way out, Will sees the ashes falling, so he heads back inside. Meanwhile, Eva is already on her way to the rooftop wearing her hazmat suit. When Will gets back inside the apartment, he notices that Eva is not around, so he goes to the rooftop to find her. When Eva reaches the rooftop, she walks close to the edge of the building and watches the ashes fall from the sky. Will soon reaches the rooftop and runs toward Eva, but he is disheartened and crushed when he sees her removing her hazmat suit. Eva and Will walk slowly on their way to the waterfall in the forest due to Will's limp from the gunshot. Upon reaching the breathtaking sight, Will plants a kiss on Eva's lips and embraces her, knowing that she won't be around for much longer. Later on, Eva takes out her camera and gives it to Will. He takes a selfie with Eva, showing the date written on the back of her hand. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.